They record the whole
Well, everyone, let's get this show on the road. It is 5:30 p.m. on Monday, March 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I got a little bit of green with the Hulk here. So let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Here we go. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. I realized something very cool the other day, which is we are not the only ones that have to read the mission statement. We can pass it around. And so today, Mr. Kluger is nice enough. He's going to read the mission statement for us. And I'm hoping to include everyone that comes kind of get a turn at some point in life.
The mission of Foley Public Schools is to bring together students, parents, staff, and community to provide a quality education with an emphasis on developing the full potential of the individual.
Thank you, Mr. Kluger. All right. Let's see here. Now we're going to talk about the agenda. We do have a tabletop item on the agenda today, which is the calendar committee got their work in. We are not going to have, for anyone that did not see the meeting on Wednesday with the calendar, is now canceled. We're going to add it into the agenda tonight. Where should that be added, Dr. Perry? Is it consent or is it its own item?
I think we should have it as its own item, maybe perhaps
Well,
after.
we'll say it's number 9 and move everything else from there down. How does that sound? All right. And then the only other thing is on the consent agenda, we will be removing Corey W. from there for now, as per Dr. Perry's recommendation. So those are the only two adjustments to the agenda that I know of.
No, I'm
Oh, there's one more? Oh, and we'll be adding in this is to the consent, correct? We will be adding in a junior high track and field coach, Trent Robertson, into the consent agenda, which you all have. It's on the back side here, and I always think, oh, I'm looking here, and then I miss the back side. So please check that. Those are the only changes I am aware of the agenda. Oh, you know what? You're supposed to do the open forum for the agenda. I apologize. So keep those agenda items in mind. I have one person. In that case, we will move on to approval of agenda, which I noted the changes thereof. And when you're ready, I'll take a motion to approve.
So I'm going to ask that instead of approving the agenda, we take number 10 off until we are all able to read what we were given.
Are you making a motion
I'm
of
going to
such?
make a motion to take number 10 off
Okay.
until we are able to read what we are given.
All right, there is a motion. Do I have a second at all?
I'm all for the First Amendment, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we will have a vote then, please. Vote, if you are in favor of removing number 10, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Nay. Let's just get a hand count there to make sure we got everybody. In favors, please. Raise your hand. There were 4 in favor, and against was 3. The motion does pass tonight. We will be removing number 10 from the agenda, please. All right. Any other changes to the agenda at the moment? Or I will take a motion then to approve the amended agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
There is a motion to approve the amended agenda. All in favor? Excuse me, I need a second. Is there a second to approve the amended agenda?
Yes.
Oh, there's a second from Sharon to approve the amended agenda. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Was that a nay? There's a nay to all right. Motion does pass. Thank you, everyone. In that case, we will now move on to honoring our recently retired members. We have 2 recently retired members. One who could not be here tonight is Becky Howard, so we'll start with with her, and Stephanie is going to say a few words about Becky tonight.
Yes, I just want to take the opportunity to thank Becky for her years of service on the board. I know it's not easy work by any means. I know she was on for several terms. I wish she could be here tonight with us to say a few words herself, but she is not able to. So I just want to say thank you to Becky Howard.
Thank you. And you'll see what we have for Becky here in a moment, because we also have it for our other retired member, Ken Anderson, who's in the front row there. Ken, if you want to stand up, and we'll acknowledge you. I won't say how long Ken was on the board, but I think it was several presidential administrations. And we have here a bell which says his name, Foley School Board, and the dates. Like many people in this room, of course, I had the pleasure of having Ken as an instructor, and then I had the extra pleasure then of serving with Ken. And it's probably the very obvious thing to say that Ken has dedicated his life's work to the betterment of Foley Public Schools, both in the classroom, announcing at games, and then his work on the board for many years. And I know, he doesn't look a day of it. But I will say on a personal level, when I had Ken, I was junior in high school, which was one of the absolute worst years of my life personally. And I think everyone has bad years when they're teenagers. But I was taking classes that I had no idea what was going on in. And so Ken's class, for me, was kind of an oasis of sanity. And Ken was always a very kind person, and I really always appreciated that personally. So, and I was still learning from Ken all these years later with my time on the board. Ken has never stopped being an educator, and I think you would be hard-pressed if you went to anything in the state of Minnesota where educators gather that you would mention Ken's name. He's one of the most respected educators in the entire state of Minnesota, and probably beyond.
Thank you.
So Ken, thank you very much for your years of service, and on behalf of the school board of the school, I would like to present you with this bell commemorating your time with us. Thank you. Ken, do you want to say anything?
I would love to say a few words.
I thought you might.
I came here 56 years ago, and actually when I came here, we had found out from somebody, I was going to church in Cambridge, and somebody would talk to us. We were looking for a job. We had been offered a few jobs that we weren't interested in, and they said there's some openings in Foley. So I called up and checked out, and they said, yeah, we need a home ec teacher, and we need a history teacher, so we came in for the interview. And I later found out we both got the job. In fact, I got the job because of her. They said social studies teachers are a dime a dozen, so we need a home ec teacher really bad. They hired 3 new home ec teachers that year. Anyway, I came in. I didn't know what had happened the year before, but apparently it was a real problem. We had 30 new teachers come in 1969. And at the end of the year, previously, a whole bunch of them had resigned at the last minute, so they were really scrambling. So we came in, 30 new people came in, and the thing is, a lot of those people stayed until they retired. So they stayed right with the whole program. But it came in, and so there's a lot of new people, we all learned together. But there was a group of teachers between those that stayed and those new teachers that really changed things here. We had a social studies department that was together for 25 years, which is an amazing thing. From Bill Rasmussen all the way to Lauren Weinberg. That was quite a department. And I was particularly proud of one thing, and I was really, my goal in teaching was to give the Foley kids a world-class education. And we had the chance in the 1970s, and I shared that with Thompson not too long ago, is that we sat down with the social department, and we said, okay, what do the kids want to learn? And we said, we're on a quarter system, and we set up a whole bunch of classes that were unbelievable. They went from ancient history, medieval history, world wars, modern problems, anthropology. I forget, you got the list of them. And we taught Black history, Black experience, reading of the West. It was all in there. And the kids loved it. We went with we had a system where they would go down and it's like a ballot system down in the gym. And they'd pick classes and they'd get 30 kids in there. And we always filled out our classes because the kids really enjoyed what we were doing. But I was always worried about the fact, how do we compare to other schools? Are we as good or are we doing better? And I talked to Mr. Mills, who was the counselor, and he said, you know, I said, our top kids are as good as anybody else's. So I started looking when the scores came out, and I found that was true. But nobody seemed to know it. So I said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to get our kids involved in knowledge. And so we compete against these other schools and see how well we can perform. And so the first time, there was a meeting in St. Cloud, and there was, I took the top 4 seniors and the top 4 juniors, and we went to play. We'd never played before, they went to play. And there were 17 teams, and we came in 16 and 17 out of the school. So I said, okay, there's promise here though. We had never coached, we never did anything. So I started the program, we started competing against other schools, and pretty soon we started filling, we had a trophy case out by the library. And we started filling that with trophy case with trophies that we were winning, and our kids were starting to love it, and then telling me, we got to do this every weekend. We don't want to do anything else. And even had kids that run a wrestling program and said, I'd rather go to Knowledge Bowl. But we were on TV on Channel 5. It's called the High School Bowl. We were on the radio in St. Cloud. We were on television in St. Cloud. And we're competing against the Corys and the Apollos and the Techs, and we're doing very well. And so I was very proud of that fact. And in fact, sometimes other teachers will tell me, how do your kids know these things? That's part of our curriculum. That's what we're teaching them. So when I left Foley as a teacher back in 2000, I was very proud of what we had done. And my concern was, can we keep this going? And that's why I went on the board. And I was very proud of the fact that I went on the board in 2000. And I'm very proud of the fact that even before I was a teacher, I was involved in the hiring of a lot of the principals and so forth. They always asked me to be on the committees. And I found for you, particularly, 3 superintendents that I recruited that applied no place else. One of them was Fred Miller. We stole him out of, as chairman, we stole him out of Eden Valley Watkins. Aaron Strassel, who was here for a number of years. And then finally, the last superintendent we hired, I recruited him. He was a little town in northern Minnesota. I got great reports. The only thing that worried me, I was going to be gone during the whole interview process, but he came through, and I think he impressed enough to be at the end of the year to give him his vote. So I'm very proud of the work that I did with the school district. My goal when I got on the board was to have the school district grow. And I said, well, before I leave, I'd like to have it be 2,000 kids. We're at 1992 right now. But on some of the reports from the state that count us over 2,000, because of what Chris, you know that would be, it's like 2025. So we've crossed the 2,000.
Or adjusted.
Pardon?
Or adjusted.
The adjusted growth. So we're across the 2,000. I'm very proud. I'm ready to leave. I appreciate everything you've done for me and everything that I've been able to work with. I recently, Joe Schmidt, I met him not too long ago, the sportscast, ASPP, and he said, what you got to do, and I read the book, and Chris, you read the book, is you've got to have your own Mount Rushmore. Who's given you things that have changed your life? So I have 4 things on Mount Rushmore. One is the Foley community, because that's really made a difference in my life. 2 is Fred Dolan as superintendent. 3 is resource training and solutions. And 4 is Sandy Cordy, who was on resource training. Those 2 organizations, or those 4 things, have changed my life. So thank you very much.
Too long.
All right. Thank you, Ken, for all you've done for us. We are now going to have our approval of routine business items, including the consent agenda and the meeting minutes and board bills. So I will take a motion at any time to approve the consent agenda, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Pamela. Do I have a second? Second by Nathan. All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much, everyone. Next is our resolution for accepting gifts. We have a lot of gifts today, which is always a good position to be in for us. We have C.H. Robinson donating $82.50 for girls basketball. Mr. Jims donating $75 for 7th, 8th grade Washington, D.C. trip. Grand Champion Meat Blue Ribbon Cafe, $290 for that same trip. Burnett, $94.91 value of beverages for the 6th grade I Love to Read celebration. The Foley American Legion, 2 cases of scrambled eggs, which is probably about $1 million, for the child nutrition department. The Mike Ebnay, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, trust, which is $720 value for shells for the Foley track team. Foley American Legion again, $3,650 for the senior wisdom retreat. Jack and Jim's, $345 for the Washington, D.C. trip. Foley Family Restaurant, $180 for the trip. Goodfellas, $320 for the trip. The Thunstrom of Independence Electric, which is $759.07 for the Unified Club. And finally, the Lions Club of Foley with $300 for the books for 2nd grade. Wow, what a great position. Thank you to our community. I will take a motion to accept the gifts, please.
Motion to accept the gift.
Motion by Sharon, do I have a second? Second by Wayne, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Fantastic. And again, thank you to our wonderful community for all they're doing for us. All right. We now have the Director of Buildings and Grounds. We have a contract here, a new Director of Buildings and Grounds, which is Paul Jacobs, starting today with that. And Dr. Perry, I'll let you take it away from here.
Actually, would you prefer to do the motion first before I introduce so that
Oh,
it's official?
Sure, we'll do the motion first. So I need a motion to approve this contract, please.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Pamela, second please.
Second.
Second by Stephanie. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, now Dr.
Now
Perry.
it's time. I'd like to invite Mr. Jacobs maybe to the front, or comfortable coming here. Paul Jacobs will be our new Director of Buildings and Grounds, and I'm really excited for him to join Foley Public Schools. And most recently, Paul has served as a maintenance operations coordinator at Ogilvie Public Schools. And when I talked to his references, he'd been in the school district for 9 years, and previous to that had done some subbing as well. I believe it was in Nora. And he can fix anything. Is a problem solver, very easy to work with. You'll find that he is very friendly, so I feel like he is going to be a great addition to replace Darwin Fleck in Darwin's position. And one of the other really selling points for us is that he has experience with a pool. And we hear that that is very rare, and also shared a significant pool story with us during his interview. And prior to Ogilvie, he also was the director of home delivery for the Minnesota Star Tribune. And he also worked at the Minnesota Zoo, too. So welcome, Paul. We're excited to have you. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to the board, and perhaps we could do a quick introduction?
Yeah, let's go a quick introduction and give you a minute here.
Yeah, Robert's here.
Well, this is you.
Yes.
Hi.
Sharon Kipka.
Wayne Wilson.
And I'm Patrick Lewandowski, and I gotta say, if you work at a zoo, you're probably gonna do great at school right now.
Well, the whole joke was, because I was in maintenance at the zoo, and I started there when I was 16, mowing lawns while I went to college, because you have to be, and two things, animals do get loose, and I've got stories. And then the big thing with us as custodians and maintenance was, oh, you work with the animals? Yep, the ones on 2 hind legs. So I spent over 20 years with the state of Minnesota at the zoo. I grew up in Apple Valley, so that's back when Apple Valley, you could still motorcycle on the trails, and there was no zoo, and the cops would yell at us for motorcycling on state land, and this is going to be a zoo someday. So, but, and I know you're too serious. But what I was going to say is, I hear all this longevity. I'll be 100 years old if that happens, so I will not be here for. And my big, to lighten the mood, my big joke. So Darwin, everybody I call a real estate agent, and they're like, oh, oh, Darwin's salt of the earth. You know, it's like there was not anybody who does not know Darwin. And my big joke was a few years ago, Darwin's been talking about retiring since I've known him. And so one year, there's a motivational speaker at one of our St. Cloud meetings, conventions. And the motivational speaker's like, how many years have you been in this business? And I think the guy thought Darwin was lying. He's the only one with his hand up after 40. After 40 years, he still got his hand up. So my point is, I have a lot of respect for Darwin. I have a lot of respect for the staff. And just, I had a prepared statement about an allegory that the building is my child. The building never sleeps. My child never sleeps. You know, I have a bunch of people visit my child. I have, you know, and you kind of get the gist. And so instead of reading the prepared statement, it's just that you were like, what does this guy think of a building? Building is the first thing everybody sees. They don't see a person, first they see the building. And so my thing about making everything work for people in my relationships with the teachers at Ogilvy, and you'll hear it, and if you ever want to call a teacher at Ogilvy, they know me because of the interaction of knowing their needs based on their students, their rules. And so that's my goal. My goal is to get to be known as the person that listens to everybody. Didn't mean I have the answer to it all, but the point is to try to do that. So, if you're wondering who I am, because I know you guys are like, point blank going, who's this guy? You don't know him from Adam, so. But yeah, again, if you ever want to hear about the zoo, that was, let's put it this way, when I got a real job at the Star Tribune as an executive, my kids went, now I have one job. So that's me, will be, but just ask me anything and go from there.
Welcome to our team. Thank you so much. All right, now we've got our tabletop item, which is the district calendar. Dr. Perry, this is you again.
Yes, we met last week and we were able to find a nice compromise with the district calendar. And what we were able to do in the past, we had conferences the first week in November, and we moved conferences to the third full week in October.
And for anyone watching later, curious, like, if it feels kind of late for our calendar, we might be a hair late, but we are of the mind that it was more important to make sure we got a good calendar that people were in favor of, and we said we'd rather be late and good than on time and unhappy. So I want to say thank you to everyone that was part of the calendar committee, everyone that contributed. I really hope that we found a good compromise and everything, and like I said, we'd rather give time for that sort of thing than not. So.
And this is the recommendation from the committee.
And this is the recommendation from the committee. I love that. Are there any questions from the board about the proposed calendar? Any discussion? Otherwise, if there's not, I'll take a motion. But if anyone has any questions, please speak.
The committee was represented by all schools, so everybody okay.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, I'll take a motion when you got one. I'll second. All right, motion by Wayne, second by Nathan. Thank you, guys. Any other further discussion? All right, well, I'll have a vote then. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone. Next up, we have Mr. Todd Nevsky, and he's got our budget planning presentation, if I'm not mistaken.
Actually, that's me.
Oh, it is you? I'm sorry. I saw budget, I saw Todd, I made the assumption. All right, but let's go to Dr. Perry again.
What I wanted to be able to do is introduce our budget planning again for 25-26. That'd be great. And to start just with our mission, and we've read that already this evening, but again, to focus on what our core values are of achievement, kindness, respect, and support.
We've got that real big up there for anyone who's not sure.
And again, our purpose for this particular presentation is to speak about the current reality that's facing our budget, as well as the process, and then our timeline. And as you can see, this may be some similar information, just reiterating from our audit that was completed in January 27th, I believe was the date. Our local property taxes make up about $1.9 million of our revenue. And you can see that the majority of our revenue comes from the state at about 22 million, close to. And then our other source of revenue is from our federal government at about 1.6. And I also talked to our district advisory committee as well. And this is the number that we really do need to watch. We're not sure what's going to happen with the Department of Education from the federal level. And so this could impact that number. And it seems like it's touch and go each day. But some of those funds that do come from the federal government would be special education, would be our title funding, food service funding, E-rate. So there's a lot of different things that are tied to the federal government. And I think Todd, when you mentioned a few more of those things and talk about what that impact could potentially be. Our expenditures, as you heard from the audit, things didn't change much from 23 to 24. The majority of our costs come from labor in our school, and that is normal if you look across the state of Minnesota. Our average daily membership, you can see that we're declining in enrollment. And the top graph, that shows just the residents. So those that are just in the Foley Public School District. Now, if you look on the bottom graph, you'll notice that we have our adjusted. And so when Ken was talking about the 2,000, that's where the adjusted is, because we look at weights as different. So a secondary student in grades 7 through 12 is weighted differently than a K through 6 student. And as I mentioned in our committee meeting, those of us that have been around for a while remember when a kindergarten student was a 0.5 and wasn't a 1.0, and we were using like compensatory funds to help support all day, every day kindergarten. Some things that I have heard come across that I want to make sure that I speak to is we've had some community members come and talk about how we should close open enrollment. That would be an endangerment to the district financially. And you can see our non-resident gain is a little over 400 students, and our resident loss is 200. So we are an open enrollment positive gainer. So it's really important that we keep the doors open so that we can keep attracting students into the district, since our funding is based on our enrollment.
Okay, so I'm going to just rephrase that to make sure I understand it correctly in case anyone else is not sure. So basically, because we get paid per student in our school, the fact that we have open enrollment means we're basically getting money for those people, and it's offsetting not just the students who are leaving our district for whatever reason, and open enrolling or wherever, somewhere else, but it's not just offsetting that, but it's actually a positive financially for us.
Correct. We're getting the formula, so we're getting the aid. And Patrick, you bring up a great point, is that the students that are leaving, they could be going to maybe the school district, it may be online, it may be homeschooling, there's a number of different reasons, because there's a lot of different options like students have now and parents have for their children. As you know, Todd will share later in his report about our enrollment. We watch this very closely every month. We've talked at length about, we have a conservative approach to our enrollment, our projections. We projected 1839 to the start of the year. We're about right on, and we don't want to over project. And you see that we started with about 1860 in the beginning of the school year, and we lose about 30 students on average as we go through the year. And if we overestimate and we're drawing more of that funding in, we have to pay that funding back. So it's really important that we are as close as we possibly can be. And our administrative assistants in the offices, they do a great job of watching enrollment. And I know if I asked any of them where kids are going, they would be able to tell me immediately what's happening with enrollment. So they do a great job for us.
And there is nothing unusual about the student's loss any particular year, right? It's very typical.
Typical.
Okay.
A quick glance at our funding, and our funding has not kept up with inflation. You'll see that graph in about 22 seconds. Our cross subsidy does not cover the increased cost of our special education services, and as you know, that is mandated, and if we lose federal funding, that will cause that'll cause a financial situation for the district. To give you an idea, our subsidy is a little over 800,000, right around that amount, and our costs are about 5 million. Our staffing costs have increased just with wages and benefits. Health insurance is a driving factor in costs. We've declined in our enrollment, and we don't have an operating levy. We've talked about that extensively as well.
So let me ask just questions about this. There are some things that like every district is experiencing this on this list, correct?
That is, everyone is experiencing this. And even those that may have an operating levy, depending on what their levy amount is. And I shared with staff, and I don't have the number in front of me, and Todd would be able to help me. And even if we had $250, I think that would generate over like $300,000 extra coming in.
What is an operating levy for anyone who maybe is not familiar with that term, since we do not have that? How does that work?
So it's a voter approved, and there's learning, levies are for learning, and bonds are for building. That's how we keep it separate.
Okay. So the voters, so if a levy means we are going to the voters of our district, and we are saying, we would like to levy an additional funding.
$250, and that would impact
Per year.
property taxes.
And so we would say, and then the voters would say yes or no, depending on, the situation. So we might say, oh, we'd like $250, $150, whatever it is, but ultimately it'd be up to voters if we ask for that to decide, yes, we're gonna add that to the school.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
And this is just a graphical representation of inflation. So you can see the blue line is what the cost is to educate on average a student, and you can see where we're at in the state. That dashed orange line, you can see that gap is widening. So that is definitely why we have not been able to keep up with inflation. And as you know, our percent increase on the general education aids with formula allowance. 2024 we are at 4% and then at 2%, but remember that can be deceiving because it doesn't mean that we see, because there's a lot of different funding that's coming in from different areas, it doesn't mean that funding in those areas and like a levy amount, it doesn't impact that, it's just on the formula. So when you're declining, you may see an increase in the formula amount of money, but you're getting less revenue coming in.
Because there's fewer students, there's less to get revenue from.
And you can see that, you can anticipate, we know that the state is in a budget deficit this year. So you can see on average it's about 2%. It's not enough to cover what the costs, our increased costs are. Because just
And that's something that will apply to every district right there in one state.
And you have to remember, our costs, our water costs increase, our electricity increase, the cost of toilet paper, the cost of food, all those things increase for a school district as well, just like they do in your own personal home budget. Compensatory funding, this will be significant for us in the governor's bill. Compensatory funding, what the discussion is now is moving towards this direct certified, and so that's looking at county, and so our old educational benefits. And what we're hoping for is, because a lot of districts will be hurt by this, we're hoping that we are held harmless, so we'll be able to maintain that same funding that you see from 24-25. Our general fund operations, we talked about this as well. Last year, originally with the finance committee, we talked about reductions of 1.2 million. We reduced by 921,000. At the audit time, we were right on that mark of $881,000. And then our unrestricted fund balance, we spent a significant time talking about this. Todd will also speak to this this evening. You can see we're in the blue, and that green, the sagey color, is the state.
I think it's reversed.
Blue is blue is the state, our district is the sagey color. And you can see that in 2020, we were at 22% of our unrestricted fund balance, and then 14.5%. And that is your rainy day fund. So if something goes wrong, that's the money that you use to be able to fix it. Those unforeseen challenges that you may have.
Okay. So, correct me if I'm wrong, so everyone understand. If we deficit spend, it cuts into our green bar.
That is correct.
Okay. And as a district, we also have a policy about this, correct, Sharon, about what our fund balance is supposed to be?
That's correct.
Right, we were told it was 10.2.
Well, our policy is 12%.
Okay. I was going to Sharon because she's kind of my numbers
Yeah.
guru.
12% the board they can set what that policy, what that number is.
Thank you.
But wasn't it in our last, like in our booklet that we got, when the lady came in and talked, wasn't it 10%, the fund policy?
In our audit.
In our audience.
10.2%.
Our policy's 12.
Policy is
Right,
12,
but-
but we ended up
But
with.
we ended up, it was 10%.
Yes.
So how did it get from 10 to 14?
Todd, can we hold that question, because we're
Yep.
Todd?
Yep.
Todd will be able to answer that. We talked about the revised budget, and again, we know that as a construction fund, that's a high one because of our indoor quality project, and that, we'll see that go down
When that project is
when the
complete.
project is complete. And then what we are recommending is our cost containment of $430,000.
And if we are not reducing our budget at 430,000, we would have to take out of our general fund and deficit spend.
Well, we take it out of our reserves.
Or reserve, yeah, that's what I mean. And so we'd have to deficit spend.
Yes.
Okay.
And then.
Unrestricted fund, yes, thank you.
And as we've talked about with staff, that behind every line item, we know that there's a human story. We honor those that, we honor our team members, we respect their privacy. We communicate personally with people that are impacted. And of course, we always work cooperatively with our union leaders to make sure that we are following our bargain agreements. I'm gonna, you want to see one more again? And then I do have just one other document that I want to share very quickly that's a little bit more detailed in the next step, so people understand
Okay.
as we move through. So again, just some of the key dates that I want to review one more time. In January, it's February 27th. Hopefully I have all the 2025 correct. We did have an audit presentation by Bergen PBD, and you accepted that audit. On the 27th, you also directed administration through a resolution to make recommendations for reductions in programs.
And that is always a normal step at that time of year, even if reductions are not needed.
You always do that, yep. Our finance committee following that meeting was on February 10th. The finance committee, under the direction of the director of finance, had recommended we adjust our budget by $430,000. February 18th, I was presenting to staff this presentation, so staff understood what the reality that was facing our district. March 12th, we met as a finance committee to review administrative recommendations regarding the budget reduction recommendations. March 12th, we had a lengthy board work session, again, to update the board regarding what those reductions would be, the impact of those reductions. Tonight, you removed from the agenda the resolution discontinuing and reducing educational programs, and so, just so you know, this puts everything back now with people, when we're talking about people.
Okay.
And then mid-March, we tend to, at this time, we're talking with staff about those that are potentially could be impacted. And we do that early so that those that are impacted by this, that they have time if they're going to be non-renewed, they have time to look for another position. So we backlog that now.
Do all districts follow kind of a similar calendar?
Yeah.
Just essentially we're a month behind now.
We will be. I mean, it's out of respect that you do that for those people. And then mid to late May, if there's any other like non-licensed people, those are the people that we're talking to at that point. And then in June, we finalize the budget. I broke this down as a proposed budget reduction overview again, so that people could see the amounts. And one thing that I did want to mention regarding, there was a concern with SLPs and how that data in front of you for it. Also, that's a contract, and that's not a non-renewal contract that we don't have right now, it'll be done.
And the contract, is it a person in our building? Is it?
It is not a person in the building. What we are recommending administratively is, in the end, it will be 2 FTEs, but note that if the board, it's the will of the board, can decide what to do. If we want to continue to deficit spend, or we're going to have to find $150,000 elsewhere. So then.
So can I just clarify what that means? So the contract, so are we changing our number of current employees outside that contract for SLP?
No.
Is that the plan? No. Okay, so none of our people would, oh, there'd still be those days. Okay, now FTE, what is that? For anyone who's watching this later, what does FTE stand for?
Your full-time equivalent. 1.0.
Okay.
So 1.0 full-time equivalent.
Okay, and these positions that you're proposing, are these tenured people, are they probationary people? What is, can you say at this
At this
time?
point, it would be a probationary due to the seniority.
In probationary, what, just in case anyone's watching later?
They're non-tenured.
Non-tenured. So in the tenure process, just, again, I'm doing this for anyone that watches the video later, and I know we have a lot of teachers here, they get it, but I want to.
I'm glad that when I look over, the teachers are nodding, so at least I'm getting the representation.
Well, but I want to explain to anyone that watches later, just to make sure everyone understands. So what is the probation, non-tenure, how does tenure work for our team?
It will depend.
It will depend.
Where,
We have like a generic, like,
if it's after a teacher's been teaching for 3 years, after their third contract, they gain continuing contract rights.
Okay.
Contractual rights.
okay, so basically what we're talking about is people who have not met that standard of time at the very least yet. Okay, so that's why I want to clarify, again, because we have our video and stuff, I want to make sure if anyone watches later, they
Can I ask
understand.
a question in regards to the SLPs and the lighthouse speech contract that we have? Is that a yearly contract, or is that a by student contract? Or how does that work? Because I looked on the website today, again, to see what positions we have open, and we've been using them for a full year or more, last year?
For a year.
For this year, okay? And then the SLP even for hiring. So do we have to use them for a full year? Or is it something that we could have had them on our, as maybe hiring a graduate that graduates in December, or, you know, something like that? Is it something that we just chose not to look for somebody to fill that spot, since our lighthouse is way more expensive because we're contracting them out?
So tell the story, basically.
So that's what I'd like to know, is like,
Sure. We had posted for an SLP last year and we didn't have any applicants.
okay,
So we had to move to use telehealth speech. And so it is a year contract.
okay.
And actually, when you look, did it cost us more? Yes, it did. But we were able to, I think, dismiss quite a few students as well using the service. But typically when you hire an SLP, that's an expensive staff member as well, because it's a master level, typically with experience as well. So did it cost a little bit more? It did, but it wasn't that it cost $80,000.
But looking at the service that you're getting from an in-house, somebody that's our own staff, compared to an online service, we're gonna get much better service from somebody who is in our building working for us than online. I know from previous experience with my own son, having an online service, you do not get the same service as you do with somebody sitting right in front of them, working with them. So that's what I'm saying, is like, yes, maybe even in 8th grade or 7th grade, or a senior in high school, knowing that, I'm just saying that if we have a position that's open and we're paying for a contract, we should still have that position on our HR that we're hiring for that position. Because we should always be looking for somebody to fill that, even if we're contracting it out, don't you feel? Like that would be the best option, to have our own staff here.
Then we would have both contracts. We go with Lighthouse for this year here.
Right, but you're not gonna find anybody to fill that spot if we don't have somebody to hire.
So I
You know
think
what I mean? If we're not-
I think out of clarity, we're locked in for this year with
For this year.
Lighthouse, so if we found
So
somebody.
hiring somebody in December, we would have to pay twice.
So I think what I'm understanding though, if we went ahead with the proposal for Lighthouse Beach, for instance, there's nothing that says if we find ourselves needing SLP services beyond what our team could do, we could not, there's no reason why we couldn't go back, find services with them, or,
But then we have to hire for another year. We have to sign a contract with them for a year.
Right, but we would look at per student,
Okay,
okay?
is that not what we did now? Like, is that,
We had 60 spots, I believe, for,
Okay.
for the Lighthouse,
uh-huh,
and then we kept our own caseloads smaller here. So typically, you would have a smaller caseload for elementary, early childhood. Your secondary would have a higher caseload because the needs are different, as we discussed with Nancy Plante, issues for
So at your point, Pam, we should have filled the caseloads of each of our SLPs internally here first and not use Lighthouse as much as we did.
what we did.
Yeah, which is what. Okay. So you're in agreement with increasing our.
I am not in agreement with increasing it.
But that's what you're saying with the Lighthouse
No,
contract.
I'm asking
Well,
with the contract.
we'll look at the data, we'll look at the data, and we'll have to have more discussion as we go on that.
I do believe we need more discussion on that.
Yes. So, and we are planning hopefully to have a work session next week. We can add it to the work session agenda and to have more talk about it. Is what I'm hoping.
Is it federal money that reimburses for certain speech language services?
Yes.
But remember, it's not Foley.
No.
All right. I think we got a lot of good answers and questions and explanations on this proposal. Timeline's gonna have to be adjusted, obviously, but I think we're really working on due diligence, making sure everyone understands where we need to be and all that. So, anything else? Thank you very much. That was the budget presentation and discussion. There is no action needed. We are striking number 10, which is the resolution. And now the policies requiring review. This is the third and final reading for these, which means we'll need to have a motion to approve. We have policy 534, our school meals policy, and we have 799, post-issuance compliance policy. So unless there's any discussion or anything about those, I'll happily take a motion to approve them.
I'll make a motion to approve policies.
Thank you, Wayne. Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Stephanie. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, now Todd. Thank you for holding on with us. Mr. Todd Netsky, who is doing our financial position currently. Thank you, after the wonderful Aaron was with us. So you got big shoes to fill, but I know you can do it, Todd.
All right, I'm going to try. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I will start with sharing my screen here.
So we have it up for a
Yep.
moment.
Yeah, we got it.
Which,
Well, I was going to, okay.
Well,
I was just going to clarify the 12% and 10% real quick and show you that calculation.
perfect. Yeah.
The 10.25% is our unassigned fund balance divided into total expenditures, total general fund expenditures. The 12% is calculated if you divide our unassigned fund balance into just our unassigned expenditures. So that number is reduced because we're pulling out all the restricted expenditures. So I think that's the difference. So the 10.25 is probably what showed up in the audit as our ending fund balance, because that's the way the auditors calculate that. The other calculation is often referred to as the SOD calculation. So that's that. So which report do you have pulled up? Is it the budget update?
No, I have an enrollment tracking.
Okay. I apologize, I don't have that one up. Rich, any chance you can help me talk to that? Otherwise, I do have another enrollment.
Todd, why don't you just go ahead and share your screen and we'll adapt on our end. You go ahead.
Okay. Still learning the process, sorry.
It's fine, it's all right.
Okay, so this is the enrollment I have, and there might be some additional information on what you were sharing that isn't here, but as Trish was saying, we are at 1839. This number here is 1854 because it includes our early childhood ADMs. But K through 12, we're at 1839, and that's the number that I'm currently using in this tool. I'm also doing a 5-year projection, so just point that out. From an adjusted pupil unit standpoint, we are down 1 from last year, so relatively stable this year. But as you can see, projecting forward, because of our lower income in kindergarten that's being projected currently at 100 for next year, and we assume that that will be the number going forward as of now. We would decline to potentially 1,858 adjusted pupil units by 2030. So that's about 170 kids or so down. I did my rough 167 students down. Trish, do you want to add any comments to that?
I think, Todd, for kindergarten right now, if we have 100, we would be very fortunate. We're thinking more 92 would be a solid number.
What was that number?
92.
92? Yeah, I think we're at, what, like 88 right now or something?
I think 86 or 87.
Okay. So if we have to lower that, that's going to be even more of a negative impact on our projected budget, so.
So Todd, last week you were at the work session with us, which I really appreciated. But because we're talking about, reduction in budget and all that, you shared kind of a 5-year projection of our numbers about how the enrollment really ties to where our stuff is. Could you show that to everyone? I really want to make sure that it's explained.
Sure. So this is the 5-year plan executive summary report. I need to update our fund balance goal. 12% is our goal. Just going to update that real quick. Okay, so what we're showing here is our projected enrollment. We have ADMs. ADMs at 1854 for the current budget, and then declining by a total of 176 ADMs. And when you weight those, that's a reduction over the 5 years of 167. We're showing the formula allowance at the state. At a minimum is 2%. We can see for FY26 it jumped up to 2.74. Got a little rounding going on there, so it's showing 2.73. That was roughly an additional $55 per pupil unit that we're going to generate because the CPI index came in higher, so it bumped it up for next year. And that potential as of now in legislation does exist for the future as well. but we're budgeting at the conservative known minimum of 2%. You can see we have no voter approved referendum in here. If you'd like, we can quickly simulate what if we did pass a certain dollar amount per pupil unit.
Let's do it without yet, because I just want to show reality of where we're at, because we've never done the operational referendum levy. So I want to show what we're looking at as our potential reality.
Sure. So what we have in this section is we have 2 years of history. We have our revenues here, 2 years of history, our current budget, and then we have our projections forward. And you can see projections forward are pretty conservative. Many of our revenues don't change year over year. Federal and local, like gifts and interest revenue, are pretty flat. Property taxes can change with our enrollment. A lot of those revenues are driven by students. And then of course we know our state aid is primarily driven by students. Even special ed is impacted by that. As our population goes down, our special ed student population potentially goes down, and hopefully our costs go down, which drives our revenue down. So then we have our expenditures. We have it broken out 2 different ways here. We have by what's called object series, so salaries, benefits, purchase services, and so on. And then we also have the same expenditures sorted by what's called program, like site admin, district admin, and so on. So looking back, the spending variances are total general fund revenues less our expenditures, and we had a deficit spend in FY23 of $11,438, a deficit spend last year of $825,106. We're budgeted to deficit spend $430,548, and we are back in the black in FY26. A big part of this, though, is $600,000 in additional long-term facility maintenance revenue, which can only be used to maintain our facilities. So just note that without that, we would be up $300,000. From a fund balance standpoint, I'll just real quickly. So the projections you can see is this does factor in the reduction of $505,000 or so for FY27. That's the total number. I can't remember if that was all general fund, Trish. So that I think was community ed for a position. So it factors in the general fund portion of that, and then we start deficit spending, and that multiplies or magnifies as we move forward, with expenses increasing at 3% a year in FY27, 8, and so on. And for this initial projection, we just did a 3% across the board on all expenses, just to get a rough projection out. Our main concern is the unassigned fund balance. And you can see we dropped again in FY25 by potentially $320,000 or $420,000 to $2.2 million. That would be an unassigned fund balance percentage of 8.56%. And that math is again taking this divided into our total expenditures like they do in the audit. And next year we would bump up a bit by about, from a percentage standpoint, 1.3%. Are we achieving our fund balance goal? No, we're not. The amount of adjustments needed to achieve our fund balance goal in FY26 would be an additional reduction of $555,939. And then here's the SOD calculation.
And can you, for anyone that's not unfamiliar, can you explain what SOD means?
So that is statutory operating debt. So once our SOD percentage basically is our unassigned fund balance divided into our unassigned expenditures. If that becomes, I'm not sure I want to say it, greater than a negative 2.5%, so if we get to negative 2.51%, we're in statutory operating debt. The state requires us to do additional planning and actually submit a 3-year plan showing how we're going to get out of SOD in 3 years. And if you don't achieve it, you just continue to update your 3-year plan until you're successful getting out.
And so are we looking at this, or when we say getting out, I mean, we're talking cuts, it just becomes out of our hands, right? To an extent?
Yeah, I heard the voter approved referendum mentioned earlier. I feel like we're really at a point where that needs to strongly be considered, or we're just going to be cutting year after year. You can see we technically, to achieve our fund balance goal, we should be cutting an additional $555,000 for next year. If we don't do that, which that's not the plan, we need to cut $1.1 million in FY27 to achieve our fund balance goal by the end of FY27. And these aren't cumulative numbers; it just updates what's the reduction needed in 2028 would be $2.4 million.
So what year would SOD occur if we keep on the current path? I think that's what we want to hear.
Yep, on the current path that occurs in FY 2029. So
we have basically 4 fiscal years. Am I reading that correctly?
Correct.
So folks, I don't want to be an alarmist, but we have some numbers, and obviously it's projections. But Todd is very good at what he does. And we are going to have to really get together as a team, here on the board, here at the school, here in the community. And we're going to have to decide some things. I mean, cuts are going to have to keep happening unless we work together to figure out what a referendum operating levy looks like we can do for our town, what we're willing to work for together. And so I don't know, we have 4 years to get that figured out as a group, what we think we can do and work very hard together. And so I'm going to tell you right now, I'm asking for everyone in this room, everyone that's watching, to really do some soul searching and hopefully answer the call when it's made. Thank you, Todd. Anything else on that?
No, that's it. Unless you want me to do anything different with this. I think that's probably a future meeting though.
Any other questions, comments from the rest of my team on the board here? All right. I guess in that case, we'll move on. Thank you so much, Todd.
You're welcome.
I guess then in that case, we're ready for administrator information and reports. Does anyone have anything else to add tonight? We'll go from Mr. Inglis down. How's that sound tonight?
Just not a whole lot to throw in different than what was in my report. Just want to, spring activities are underway. We started girls and boys golf today to go along with softball, baseball, and boys and girls track. Boys tennis will start next week. The spring play is up and running. Speech is getting ready to finish up their portion of the season. We host the Granite Ridge Conference meet in Foley on Thursday for speech. And then one additional point that I wanted to just reiterate was if you had the opportunity to be at our unified basketball game during the school day last week, it was something that was truly special, truly remarkable, just a really heartwarming event. And just want to make sure that I get a second thank you to Miss Jen Peatgrass for all the work that she does with our unified club and making sure that that's an opportunity that we provided for our students here, because like I said, it is really an incredible thing.
Ms. Stewart tonight, anything to add?
Just congratulations to the retirees for all their years of service, from Kent Anderson, Becky Howard, and then Miss Karen will be dearly missed in DCFE and will be a very hard face to fill. She's been great in that program and has done a great job. So,
Mr. Kluger, anything to add tonight?
Nothing to add tonight.
All right, we did a great job in the mission statement, so we'll let you go. Mr. Bierman tonight?
Nothing to add.
All right, Mr. Foss?
So I'm just going to add one more comment about the unified game. One of the people in attendance was a retired principal from the Osseo School District, and he commended our students and our community for putting it on, and just the support from our students for that, but also the support from the community. If you were there, you noticed we had some short basketball hoops for students in wheelchairs. We didn't have those until about 2 weeks ago, and we put out one call to the community, and a donor gave those to us.
Wonderful. That's awesome.
Very good.
Our community, I always say our community always steps up when we need them. And they also know that we don't ask lightly when we ask for things either. So I think we have a trust with that and our community responds. Dr. Perry, anything to add on your end
I just
tonight?
have a couple of different things. I just want to acknowledge that it was National School Breakfast Week, and since the last time that we met, and we had quite a few volunteers that came and helped serve breakfast, so thank you to those volunteers, and we know that our kitchen staff just really does a tremendous job, not only serving breakfast, but for lunch as well. And I'd also like to echo Mr. Inglis and Mr. Foss and the Unified basketball game against Malacca, and also thank Malacca for being willing to share in that experience. Not only do they allow their students to come to our facility, but we also go to Malacca as well. And our student body just was excellent. It didn't matter if the kids were from Malacca or from Foley. Everyone cheered for anyone that made a basket, didn't make a basket. It just did not matter. I don't think anyone, so many times I think in sports we're wrapped up on the score and who wins, and it didn't matter on that day. Everyone was a winner, and there were smiles, and there was dancing, and thank you to Janelle Hesh, who led our band. We had concessions, Jen Peagrass, her acknowledging so many staff members that helped. Not only for that day, but they do a lot of neat programming with the Unified Club. There's a lot of adults that come and help, so thank you to all those people. And Jen was also recognized as an educator of the month. I don't remember the radio station offhand, but really did a great job of representing Foley Public Schools. So we should all be very proud of the different work that's happening, not only in the high school, but all of the buildings.
Fantastic. All right, then we'll move on then to meeting events and notices. There was one listed here, a special board meeting for the calendar this week. We do not need that because we took care of it, so that meeting is canceled once again. And a thank you to our calendar committee, and we might make sure we had a meeting scheduled just in case we needed more time. So, but thank you for getting that done. We are going to have a regular board meeting here at 5:30 on the 14th of April. Not an April Fool's thing, so get your seat reserved now, I guess. And that's it for the regular meetings. We'll have committee reports. Was anyone at DAX recently would like to share? Or anything?
Well, there was, they talked about standard-based grading. Joel gave a very good explanation on the career and college fair. Trish talked about youth frontiers. Gave a lot of information. We talked about unified basketball in the game, and a lot of the parents that were there were very happy that their 9th grade boys came home and talked more than they've ever talked the whole year, they said, in regards to that. And I can say my 10th grader came home and he told many stories, and who got threes and who got this and who got that. So I did hear all about it. We also went over the financial presentation.
Thank you. I was unable to attend, so I'm glad you made it with us. Thank you very much. Wellness committee, anything? Our wellness team. Athletic boosters, anything this time to share? Oh, Mr. Ken Anderson was there. Are we okay with letting him give a quick report on athletic boosters?
Was that athletic?
No, that's not
No,
me.
Stern.
Oh, Ben Stearns. Oh, okay. I thought you were raising your hand for athletic boosters. Well, then we'll go to Ben Stearns. Mr. Anderson is still helping us out. He's still on the Ben Stearns board. And Stephanie, you are also serving on that, correct?
Yeah, I am now on that board, yeah.
Okay.
It's not on
Oh, okay. So
that board.
are you a representative?
Yes,
Amy?
yeah.
That's what I'm asking. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
You weren't at the.
Just to follow up, what we still are struggling with is finding space for facility.
Okay.
And so we have another presentation. We're always kind of behind. On Wednesday, we have another meeting, and so that's a significant part of the agenda.
All right. Mr. Anderson is the board member of the Benton Stearns Educational District. Is there anything you'd like to add since you're here front and center?
anymore.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Let's see, finance. We've had a lot of finance stuff tonight. Is there anything else to be added to finance? Foley Area Foundation is one of our committees. Does anyone have anything to report there?
They had a meeting on
last week, but correct, there wasn't a quorum
Oh,
for the
okay.
meeting, and so we're in the process of scheduling since I think 4 of us was the stewards doing that too, and they're all here. They are rescheduling that meeting. So if you haven't responded to April, please respond to her so she can set another meeting date.
All right, the Health and Safety Committee, was there anything going on there?
Yes, we had a meeting last week, and we're doing really well with workman's comp claims, they're down. So that was a real positive from the insurance point of view. And I think that was really, yeah, maybe, I can't think of if there was really anything else. If that was really it, it's just looking at our claims and then setting another meeting date. And then we also finished scheduling our lockdown drills and then tornado drill as well.
The Insurance Committee, is there anything from there yet? No. And then, of course, the MSBA, is anyone, can report from that?
The only thing that I would encourage is that if you haven't done your phase 1 training, to complete that. But then also, there's some really great webinars coming up about budget planning. I would encourage you to watch that. If you don't register, because everything is recorded, but the budget planning would probably be a very good one to watch.
Anything from the Minnesota State High School League? Policy we heard from. All right, and then tenure and contract negotiations. No, so thank you everyone for your committee work this time. At this point, well, in that case, we'll go to the board members. We'll start with Nathan tonight. Ms. Visner.
Thank you to Ken and Becky for their service. And I think that's all I have.
Okay, Stephanie.
I had the opportunity to go to the unified game, and it was amazing. Like, if you ever get the opportunity to go, you haven't. I was like emotional. It was so great, and so I had the opportunity to sub that game at 10. So, and Jennifer Press does such a great job. She is such a great teacher, and just so much for kids. And so, congratulations to her.
Alyssa.
I just want to make a shout out to all of our students. They're working hard. We're nearing the nice weather, and they're getting excited to be done, and they're still putting in all the efforts and hard work. I also just want to, just our athletics in general, those kids are also working hard. I know our youth wrestling did really well, and they're all moving on to the state tournaments. And then also our archery team. Our archers work in a very small area of the school because there's not a lot of facility space. But we were in Zimmerman over this last weekend, and we had 8 archers who shot perfect 50s, and 47 of those archers shot their personal best. That's in 3D and in bullseye. In 3D, high school and middle school placed top 10. Middle school was 3rd place, high school was 7th. We've had a few individual placings, so it's team and individual. In the bullseye, high school took 2nd, middle school took 1st, elementary took 4th. Again, multiple podiums that night. It was really cool to see. This is one of the bigger tournaments, as is the tournament next weekend and the next weekend. So just, if you know an archer, congratulate them because they're all working very hard and improving very much through the season. So.
Fantastic, thank you. Sharon, anything tonight?
Congratulations to Karen Ehrman for her many years of service. She has brought so much positive to our little learners, and I want to thank each and every one of you for coming tonight.
All right, Mr. Wilson.
No comment tonight, thanks.
All right, I got to pull up my notes here because speech was mentioned. The conference meet is this week, and Maria Zimke is our coach, and she's actually really optimistic because our conference is kind of a smaller group of schools, and our team is doing very strongly this year. I got to have the pleasure of going to judge a meet a few weeks ago, and I'm hoping to do so soon again. But I want to say that the meet I got to judge was one of the largest meets in our area. Like normally a couple schools come and whatnot. There are 500 students competing at this meet. The meet was so big, so there's always like a finals round. For some of the categories, they broke it up. Finals, almost made finals, and even a couple of them had the third. So like you had up to 24 students who were getting awarded outside of like their normal round. So it was amazing. So to kind of give you an idea of how competitive it was. And I'm going to make sure I got the name right here before I say something. Max Vetter took second in the humorous category at that meet. And that part is not broken up by school size or anything. So he was second overall in his category at that meet, which is amazing. Eli Nick brought home an honorable mention in her category. Fantastic. I mean, and again, I can't stress enough, there's a lot of schools, there's a lot of kids. Foley, being the small school category, took second. So it is amazing to watch, and it's very exciting. So I want to say congratulations to all of them, and I want to say that Maria Zimke is doing an amazing job. She also did the junior high, I think I mentioned last time, you know, kind of say, wow, we got a lot of success. The program is definitely building up. It's really cool to see. Spring play, as mentioned, please go see a show, and we are hitting that magical time of year where there's going to be a lot of cool things to see, right? Especially as the seniors are kind of having their victory lap. We're going to have, I believe, the prison concert coming up in May, which is really like a school talent show. Highly encourage everyone to go see that. It's awesome. There's going to be concerts, there's going to be plays, there's going to be awesome athletic events. There's no reason for you to be bored on any given night in this town. So that's all I have to say tonight. Anything else? I think we're good. So sadly, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Sharon. Is there a second? Second by Alyssa. I didn't think there was going to be a second. All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, we